How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the channel. Today I thought I'd give you my review and initial thoughts and impressions on id Software's latest entry in their long-running Doom series. Now I want to make it clear that I have not yet finished the Dark Ages, but I do have a decent amount of gameplay racked up on the title, and I've literally just passed the halfway point, which I feel has given me enough input to provide anyone on the fence about buying this epic game or trying it on Game Pass. I will try and avoid spoilers for anyone who is interested in the story but hasn't played it yet. I will let you know if they do pop up, but without much further ado, let's rip into it. The Dark Ages is probably the most aesthetically different of the new Doom titles so far, and it's not hard to see why. For starters, the Dark Ages has a medieval fantasy element in its setting, and not just a UAC facility that has been overrun with demons, or a devastated Earth turned into a vast hellscape. The Dark Ages is also far more narrative driven than its predecessors, with cutscenes coming way more into the focus. And even in gameplay, you get a real sense of size and scope. But none of that changes the fact this is still a pretty good Doom game. Now I won't spoil the story for anyone who hasn't played it yet, but it isn't much to write home about if I'm honest. So far, for the time that I've played, we've had way more context of what's going on, more of the Makers, that alien race we saw towards the end of Eternal. We get a glimpse of how and when they use the Slayer and how they interact with the Night Sentinels, King Novik, and the Hell Priest. We're obviously going to make an appearance in this, and we have some new characters too, such as Prince Azrak and Commander Thera. We get an opening text, this time without the epic narration for some reason. We're reminded of the Slayer's superhuman abilities being gifted to him by the Makers. This isn't new. A war between Hell and the Night Sentinels has already kicked off when we start, and it's clear that there is some kind of deal that has been arranged between the Night Sentinels and the Makers, where the Slayer is deployed in a time of great need, and then reined in when things are back under control. We learn what Hell's hierarchy is looking for, and keen listeners will pick up that there are traitors on humanity's side, and will probably put together that there is infighting on Hell's side. We learn that the Slayer doesn't seem to be trusted by the Night Sentinels and the Makers. That's all we really need to know about the Dark Ages going into it, and I don't think I can divulge much more without spoiling it for anyone who's actually interested in the story. Despite a relatively thin plot, it seems to be on a steady burn, and one problem I've noticed, especially at the beginning of the game, is that we don't really get an explanation of how we get from A to B. Also, the characters around the Slayer pretty much have to convey the story, seeing as he's practically mute. Viewers should also know that this was going to be a first impressions video, but not much is really advanced either. The stakes have gotten higher since my initial 4 hours of gameplay, which is when I started this review, and I had to start again because I managed to accidentally delete the wrong save file.
Dumb cunt.
Before I get into the nitty gritty, I should make it clear that like 2016 and Eternal, this game is awesome. It really scratches that itch most of us fans have felt since finishing the Ancient Gods Part 2 back in 2021. And like most recent titles, this game makes you feel like an unstoppable force, and that you really are humanity's last hope. Doom the Dark Ages runs on the impressive id Tech 8 engine and looks absolutely gorgeous, and if they ever stop making games full time, they could surely make some money creating game engines and leasing them out if they don't already. As previously mentioned, you get a real sense of size, scope and spectacle with the Dark Ages, with an all-out intergalactic war that you can see being played out off in the many distant landscapes that you can see in the game's very few quiet moments. The cutscenes add to this as well, with many showing the ongoings with the Night Sentinels' chain of command, Prince Azrak's council, the Maker's fickle nature, and the overall fear that all factions have of the Slayer. Not to mention, throughout the campaign, you travel to different planets and realms. Like Doom 2016 and Eternal, this game has a codex for all the different characters, locations, weapons, enemies, artifacts, and really anything of general interest in the world. If you're someone interested in delving into the game's backstory, or just want to have a quick squiz, then the Dark Ages has you covered, and this time the codex bears a striking resemblance to the pages of the Necronomicon.
Necronomicon Ex Mortis.
Not gonna lie, that's awesome, and it really adds to this medieval sci-fi epic that they're going for. Looks-wise, this game, like the others, knocks it out of the park, and I much prefer the darker art style they've gone with over the more cartoony video game style in Eternal. Mind you, it's not completely rid of the video game style combat, with the floating red and green enemy projectiles. Remember that, because we'll come back to them later. Many of the enemies have been redesigned, and looking absolutely menacing, except for the Cacodemon. I don't know what they were really thinking with that one. Most of the classics make a return with the addition of some new enemies or new variants. The Imp and its variants probably have the best redesigns that I've seen so far, aside from the Slayer, and really, so they should. Being a fodder demon that you encounter all game, they'd want to be looking good. The weapons have also had redesigns and reimaginings, and they actually add some variety to the game. We have the Shotgun, Super Shotgun, Accelerator, Cycler, which are the plasma guns, Shredder, which is the base heavy cannon, the Impaler, which is like the sniper substitute, the Pulverizer, which is that awesome looking Skull Crusher gun, and of course the Shield. And yes, they do have some updated functions as well. Sadly, the music is very lackluster compared to Mick Gordon's epic masterpieces of Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. It doesn't steal the show in any way at all, and none of the tracks that I've heard so far are memorable. Because of this, I feel the cutscenes and the levels suffer a little bit in terms of conveying any sense of urgency and identity to separate one section from another, and it's just such a shame that Mick and id won't be working together anymore. The soundtrack does its job, but it's not something that fans or newcomers are likely to remember. Now to the combat of Doom the Dark Ages.
I love the pain. Because the pain is the truth. The hurt is the truth. And realizing my hair is all going to fall out, my teeth are going to fall out, and I'm going to be brought low.
Remember the enemy projectiles? Well, get used to seeing them, because there's plenty in this game, as it'd have gone for a bullet hell style gameplay. As we saw in the trailers, this game's main new mechanic is the parry mechanic, which works like most other parry systems in gaming. To successfully parry, you have to time the green projectiles to send them back to the enemy. You can also block red projectiles, but you won't be able to send them back, and they drain your parry bar, so after a certain amount of hits you won't be able to use your shield. That's for both green and red projectiles, or so the game tells you anyway. You can also block and parry the melee attacks of enemies, which is another way to daze the enemies. Personally, I would have rather just had all the projectiles and attacks parryable. The parry mechanic feels incredibly overused in this game, and for the time that I've played, you're forced to use it all the time. While we're talking about the shield, the dash button has been replaced with a shield dash, which requires you to lock onto an enemy before charging them. The other main feature this shield has is the shield throw, which makes the Slayer feel more like Captain America at times. At least if we get a Captain America game, we know who Marvel should approach to make it. Just weeks before the game launched, we were told that Doom the Dark Ages will have a more stand and fight approach to the combat in this game, and I feel that is a little bit deceiving. You have to move around to avoid taking damage, and to be honest, it feels more in line with the older Doom titles like Doom 1 and 2, in regards to the bullet hell style, and we're making sure that demons don't find their way behind you, because they will kill you. It's also worth mentioning too that the parrying and melee mechanics have replaced the glory kills in favour of glory strikes. The reasoning was to be able to take out multiple enemies at once with a single strike and not slowing the game down, but the parry and melee effects used by the Slayer slow down the game anyway. There's apparently already a mod on PC to get rid of the slow-mo parry and melee animation, and it really could just be made a toggle switch in the options menu. To be honest, once you've seen them once, you've seen them a million times, but that also goes for the old glory kills as well, to be fair. Back onto the gameplay. The guns in the Dark Ages feel just as awesome as they have in 2016 and Eternal, but sadly the base versions of the guns don't seem to be as impactful, and you have to upgrade them to get any real benefit from them at all. This time around, instead of weapon mods, you just have weapon slots that get filled by both guns in that class. For example, the Shotgun and Super Shotgun occupy the same slot in your weapon wheel, and instead of switching out weapon mods, which used to feel like forever, you just swap the gun with what would have been the weapon mod button. And they just use the same ammo pool, and let's be honest, most of us just stuck to the one mod we like 90% of the time. There's also many trade-offs to each weapon, and as you get more, you finally start to feel a bit more variety in the game, which might sound contradictory to what I was saying about the parry mechanic, but my opinion won't change. For example, the Shredder and Impaler share an ammo slot, and you'll have to choose between suppressive fire and high damage output for one ammo type. As I mentioned in the intro, I've passed the halfway point, the Sentinel Command Station, and I've experienced enough variety on this game to provide an idea of what it's like to play. Leading up to the game, it was announced that we'd finally take control of an Atlan, a mech so massive it's taller than some skyscrapers, and that we get to ride a cybernetic dragon. So far, I've played 2 missions in the Atlan, and I saw a lot of promise in that style of gameplay, but what was delivered was pretty lackluster. The first Atlan level was really just fighting massive demons and going from point A to point B, and the combat was primarily left, right, good night, with a sprinkle of evasive moves, and towards the end of the first Atlan level, we got to have a go at a massive chain gun. The level itself also had a vague degree of exploration, which unfortunately wasn't rewarded with any type of collectibles. During the second Atlan experience, we fight the same massive demons in Hell and get a massive shotgun instead. We didn't get any incentive to explore in the Atlan mech in that mission either. Luckily it finished off on foot and we got some more Slayer action and a small amount of exploration. I was admittedly pretty disappointed with what we got there. Flying Surratt, the cybernetic dragon, unfortunately felt like a poor man's Star Fox. I'm pretty sure I'm up to the second Surratt sequence at the time of writing, and I hope it's better than what we got in the first dragon level. In that level, we had to destroy Hellcarrier defenses and then dismount to destroy their cores on foot. Now I don't really have an answer for id on how it should be addressed in the future, aside from don't put it in a Doom game, unless it's been implemented effectively. But the control scheme felt clunky, and you spend most of the mission flying around only to stop dead in the air to have 1v1s with enemy turrets. I would think battles like that would be a bit more energetic, like doing strafing runs instead of being locked in one position, and having more demons like oversized cacodemons flying around and dealing damage to provide extra challenge. The upgrade system has been converted to a shop, now very much like how we used to see the Divinity statues in the Devil May Cry games, only they're called Sentinel Shrines. And the Dark Ages now has 3 in-game currencies to upgrade your shield and weapons. Those are gold, rubies, and wraithstones, increasing with rarity and utility for the level of upgrades. Runes are back but are limited to the shield once you unlock them. If you stayed until this point, you probably forgot that I said this game was a pretty good game at the start of the video. Aside from the Atlan and Dragon sections, a lot of the criticisms I've had of this game are just nitpicks really, but I thought it would be relevant to include them. While I don't think anyone could say that id has captured lightning in a bottle for the 3rd time in a row with this game, it is still fun, and I can't wait to see what else it has in store for me. If you're a Doom fan, a fan of FPS games, and or action horror games, definitely check out Doom the Dark Ages. Thanks heaps, I'll see you next time.